Hello, my name is Mark Parrington. I'm a senior scientist at the European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecasts, and I work in the team that's delivering the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service on behalf of the European Commission. We asked our community if they have any questions on how we monitor wildfire emissions and smoke, and I'm going to answer some of those questions now. Before I answer these questions, I'll give a short explanation of what we do in CAMS and why being able to estimate wildfire emissions is important. In CAMS, we're running forecasts of global atmospheric composition and European scale air quality. And to be able to do this reliably, we need good information, up-to-date information on the emission sources at the surface. So from sectors such as road transport and energy production and industry, we have inventories that don't change very much over time. However, when it comes to wildfires, these are very heterogeneous in space and time. And they're very difficult to predict from a modelling system, and so we need observations and to be able to estimate their emissions in near real time so that we have the best information for our forecast system. Accurate estimates of emissions of smoke from wildfires is very important because the smoke, which is composed of particulate matter and a wide range of potentially toxic gases, can have direct impacts on human health and the air that we breathe. Wildfire smoke can also have quite a long lifetime in the atmosphere, which means that it can be transported over vast distances. And indeed, in the late spring and early summer of 2025, we've been seeing several plumes of smoke crossing the Atlantic and reaching Europe, where we've been able to notice changes in the colour of the sun and also hazy skies, which shows that we can also notice the impacts of these fires thousands of kilometres away. For CAMS, all the forecast products that we provide, and indeed all the Copernicus data products, are available open access and free to anybody who wants to use them. The CAMS data can be accessed from our Atmosphere data store, and we routinely show the latest forecasts on our website through the charts. The CAMS system is one of several similar global forecasting systems for atmospheric composition, which are run and operated by other centres around the world. And we routinely try to compare our forecasts against those other centres to understand how well these forecasts compare relative to one another. The next few questions concern how we observe and measure fires. And before I answer these questions, I think it's important just to explain quickly how we estimate fire emissions in CAMS. We're using a satellite measurement of a parameter called fire radiative power, which is available in near real time, and which is related to the amount of vegetation that is burned, which is then in turn related to the amount of particulate matter, carbon gases, and all the other pyrogenic pollutants which are emitted by wildfires. There are a number of satellite-based sensors which are measuring wildfires around the world. Many of these are provided by governmental agencies such as NASA, like the MODIS instruments or the VIAS instrument, or by the European Space Agency and EUMETSAT, such as the Sentinel-3. There's also sensors on geostationary satellites which provide measurements throughout the full diurnal cycle, and there's a growing number of companies which are launching small satellites which are also measuring fire and the thermal properties with a view to providing information for early warning. The wildfire emissions estimation that we do in CAMS with our global fire simulation system has been based so far on MODIS fire radiative power observations, but as these two instruments are coming to the end of their life cycle, we're also developing and expanding GFAS so that we can use VIAS, Sentinel-3, and also geostationary FRP observations. The wildfire emissions estimation and monitoring that we do in CAMS isn't intended as an early warning system. The priority of the fire emissions is to provide the best initial conditions for our forecast system. However, we do have 20 years of data which then provides some context for current fires in terms of their emissions and their intensity. However, our air quality forecasting does provide some early warning for where the potential impacts of wildfire smoke could be in terms of air quality and the air that we're breathing. So as I said, we're not providing information directly in individual fires themselves. However, we do share our information with some wildland fire fighting agencies, because we have this 20+ year data set on the emissions, so we can understand a particular fire season in the context of the same season over previous years. All our wildfire emission estimation is based on whatever satellite observations there are of active fires at the time. So it might not always be possible to know exactly when a fire starts or when it ends, but so long as there's an observation, then we can estimate the emissions. Satellite sensors are relying on their first observation of either the burned area or the heat signal from the fires. And this is a combination of whether it's cloudy and the orbit overpass time of whichever satellite is making the observation. We don't use this kind of information near real time in CAMS, but the Copernicus Emergency Management Service and other civil protection agencies do use this information to understand where fires are starting and how to react to them. The year-to-year comparison of fire emissions that we communicate regularly about in CAMS is based only on the 23 years of data that goes back to 2003. And this is because our system is based on the two MODIS instruments from the Aqua and Terra satellites. There are sensors which provide measurements of burned area that go further back in time than the early 2000s. And while we don't use these in CAMS, there are other fire emissions data sets which have used these kind of observations to provide longer time series of the emissions. While it's possible to predict the environmental conditions that are conducive to wildfires, predicting the actual ignition is much more challenging. In CAMS, we're not doing anything in terms of predicting wildfires. However, at ECMWF, I have some excellent colleagues who are working on providing forecasts of fire risk and fire danger based on the forecasts of meteorology and hydrology. And they're also now developing new tools to further improve these forecasts. And that's it. Many thanks for all your great questions. Follow us on social media for more regular updates on wildfire emissions monitoring and air quality monitoring around the world. Check out our global and European forecasts and all our other products at atmosphere.copernicus.eu.